So I was sentenced at this point to 144 years, all suspended but 19 years. I would have to do 85% of that in the Commonwealth of Virginia. It was now time to go to prison or go down the road, as they say. At the time of sentencing, I immediately, after going into back into my dorm that night or my pod that night, I got into a fight the next morning and literally kicked off what they said was a riot, but it was really just me flipping a milk cart and throwing some trays because I was mad that the guys had got our visits canceled the night before. And I told them, if y'all come out in the morning and eat breakfast, I'm going to raise, because I wanted to see my mom. And it wasn't the right thing to do. I don't glorify that. Again, this was the 19-year-old version of me, and I raised hell, and we're gonna talk about it. I was angry, and on top of that, it was on site for me. Anybody that I felt like just had an issue or felt a way towards me, I didn't care. I had to have you. Win, lose, or draw, it is what it was. I just had something in me I had to let out. And I didn't feel, even though I was grateful for a second chance, my mind, my young mind couldn't fathom doing 17 years. Like, it was one thing, like, all right, I got a second chance, but once the shock of court wore off, nah, it felt like I would never be able to see home again. Like I was gonna die in here. I got eventually put on 2-man escort in the hole, which means that I couldn't go anywhere without 2 officers escort me, and I had to be shackled at my wrist to waist and ankles as well at all times, even to go to the shower or stand in a cage outside to get some fresh air. I was in the hole permanently until my number got called to go down the road. When you go down the road, the first place you go to in VA is receiving. Receiving is basically where they assess you. And that was okay, but it was not prison. You're there for 2 weeks. You're separated from the rest of the compound, and they level you out. They send you whatever level you're going. Level 1 is the lowest, level 5 being the highest, or level 6 at the time, I think. Red Onion may have been still a 6. Now the highest levels are 5. I ended up getting sent to a level 4 because of the amount of fights I had got into. I had started a clique while I was at the jail called the Collar Crew, with some youngins that were from out of state. The charge, just everything. I had everything stacked against me, and they sent me straight to a maximum security prison called Sussex 2 State Prison. First thing I remember, aside from those horrible bus rides and feeling claustrophobic and hoping the bus driver didn't crash because you're shackled in there and locked inside the back of a van or bus. But in this case, it was a bus. I remember pulling up to Sussex 2, and to this day, it's etched in my mind. It was a fortress. It's unforgiving. It's cold. It's concrete. It's steel. It's not a place you want to be in. You recognize that immediately. Barbed wire everywhere. Getting off, they were yelling. They led me into a room, and they literally told me to strip. And while holding a camcorder on me, they would say things and ask questions. What's your name? Your date of birth? Hey, can you squat and cough? Over and over, different questions. I believe it was part of a humiliating process, but I don't know, meant to break you down. And ironically enough, they stopped doing that in the DOC, at least in VA. Once that was over, they take you to the barbershop. They shave all your head, hair, facial hair, all that. You're not allowed at the time to have any of that. You go to laundry, you're issued your garments, and it's usually used whites, used boxers, used shirts, used socks, used everything, clothing that other people have wore, but they wash and then they reissue once an individual's either lost their life, moved, etc. The clothing is recycled. Once we were issued our stuff, we were let out on the boulevard, and it was summertime, and it was like 100 degrees or whatever, and everybody was outside. And instantaneously, though I was blinded by the sun, I looked out and I seen a sea of burgundy, because they didn't have prison blues at the time there. Everybody had burgundy smocks. And I also seen violence, chaos, and confusion. I seen that this was my home, and this felt like some Road Warrior, Mad Max stuff in here. I seen guys fighting. I seen stains on the boulevard that I learned later on was blood. It was just a lot, man. Dudes arguing. The tension was there. They're on the fence because you got to walk down this boulevard. They on both sides. Yo, where you from? Da da da. You don't know if you got an enemy there. You know, it's bad. this was all before I even got into the building that I was going to be living in. You understand what I'm saying? This was the morning. The morning. The first 24 hours was crazy. The whole situation, my entire living in prison was crazy, but I immediately, I got broken ASAP. It's like, hey, welcome to prison. We gonna max you up. We gonna send you to the worst of the worst. Might well get used to it. And that's what happened. And let me tell you something, the first 24 hours, it was crazy.